With its high manoeuvrability and lethal firepower, the French AMX-30 SUPER has certainly earned its reputation as one of the best premium tanks in the game. But is this tank's strong performance worth its high price tag of €60? Alright lads, today I'm going to be talking about the history, performance, weapons and tactics of the AMX-30 SUPER. As usual, we'll start with the basics. The AMX-30 is a rank 6 battle rating 9.0 medium tank located in the French tech tree. Being a rank 6 premium, it will be effective at researching any vehicle from rank 1 to rank 7. The AMX-30 SUPER actually has the second highest RP modifier of any premium tank of the game, with 660%. It also receives the standard 420% silver line modifier, that is typical for all of the top tier premiums. The AMX-30's decent reward modifiers, as well as this tank's other strengths that I will cover shortly, make this tank a very fun and profitable premium. But as usual, the best things in War Thunder are locked behind a paywall, and the AMX-30 SUPER is no different. This tank is purchased on the guide and store in the SUPER AMX-30 pack. In this pack, which costs €60, you get 15 days of premium time, 2,000 golden eagles, and the AMX-30 SUPER itself. Being a premium, it will cost you 10,000 silver lines to put this vehicle in your lineup, but it will set you back 940,000 silver lines for an expert qualification, and a further 2,100 golden eagles for the ace qualification. If you would like to know more about this tank, and whether it's worth the substantial asking price, then stick around for the rest of the video. Immediately after the end of World War II, the French army was left using the German Panther tanks. Several years later, the ARL-44 started rolling off the production lines. The ARL was already pretty much redundant, and by 1950, only 60 had been produced. This was due to the French knowing that the ARL was only a stopgap measure. In the meantime, the French had been working on the AMX-50. There were several issues with the AMX-50, notably the poor armour of the oscillating turret, as well as issues sealing the turret from rainwater, as well as nuclear, biological and chemical elements. In the early 1950s, the Americans essentially gave Central European countries, mainly France and Germany, M47 Patton tanks. Because of these three tanks, and the issues with the AMX-50 design, the project was scrapped, and the M47 was adopted by the French army instead. The AMX-50 project was later reopened, with the intent of forming a new heavy tank. They used a new oscillating turret, with a new 120mm gun. However, like the previous AMX-50 prototypes, they had issues, and in 1956, the new AMX-50 project was permanently closed. Both of these prototypes can be found in the French tech tree in War Thunder, under the names of AMX-50 and AMX-50 SUPER respectively. Although the M47 had been adopted, they were not seen to be particularly future-proof, especially with the rapidly developing Soviet tank technology. In October of 1956, France and Germany formally signed a bilateral agreement to collaborate in building a quote-unquote Europa Panzer. In February of 1957, designers defined the requirements for the future tank. This included a maximum width of 3.2 meters, a height of 2.2 meters, and a new 105mm tank gun. The new tank would also have an air-cooled petrol engine, torsion bar suspension, and a power-to-weight ratio of at least 30 horsepower per ton. All tanks are designed with three factors in mind: firepower, manoeuvrability, and armour. The Franco-German design gave the highest priorities to manoeuvrability, and then firepower. This was due to modern heat-FS rounds pretty much making road steel armour redundant. France and Germany both created two prototypes each. After these had been designed and tested, the German prototype designed by Porsche was determined to be the most successful. Another issue identified in testing was that both countries wanted different features for their tanks. For example, the Germans wanted the British L7 105mm gun, and the French wanted their own domestically built 105mm gun. Due to both countries being unable to agree on a single design, the project was cancelled, and both countries decided to pursue a separate tank program based on their respective prototypes. The German prototype went on to become the Leopard 1, that saw widespread service with several European countries, while the French prototype, named the AMX-30A, was redesigned by 1966. This new design of the old prototype was given the name AMX-30B, and entered service with the French army in the same year. The AMX-30B had a new part cast, part welded turret, as well as a new Hispano-Suiza diesel engine. While the engine was good, it was let down by its gearbox, which caused substantial issues and frequent breakdowns. The AMX-30Bs went through several upgrades during their service life, and our AMX-30 SUPER Premium tank is one of those upgrades. Developed by a German company, the AMX-30 SUPER has several major differences to the other AMX-30 variants. The engine, transmission, running gear, armament, and the turret have all been modified. The new engine produced 850 horsepower and was mated to a ZF transmission. The suspension had been improved due to the 10 additional shock absorbers, as well as the running gear being replaced by the larger road wheels from the Challenger main battle tank, as well as new drive sprockets and tracks. A new fire control system improved the capabilities of the day and night thermal sights. as well as the addition of a laser rangefinder and wind sensor. The gun aiming system was changed to electrical power, increasing turret rotation speed. On the turret of the tank, the commander's cupola was modified to receive a typical German MG ring, as well as the addition of 16 German-made smoke discharges. This Super AMX-30 was intended to increase the lifespan of the AMX-30 tank, similar to the Leopard 1A5 project. However, unlike the Leopard 1A5, the Super AMX-30 had no buyers, and only one tank was ever built. Overall, the AMX-30 served France up until the introduction of the Leclerc in the late 1990s, and even saw service in the 1991 Gulf War. The AMX-30 Super weighs 36.5 tons and is powered by a diesel engine producing 850 horsepower. This gives the tank a power-to-weight ratio of 23.3 horsepower per ton. This is the second best power-to-weight ratio of any of the top-tier premium tanks, with the only thing beating the AMX-30 being the American XM1. It can reach a top speed of 65 km per hour on solid ground, and around 48 km on dirt on soil. It is also capable of 28 km in reverse. The good power-to-weight ratio makes acceleration, both forwards and in reverse, feel very responsive, and you can react to emerging threats very quickly, and it is particularly useful for peeking around corners and quickly reversing back into cover. The AMX also has neutral steering, which rotates the tank faster than the turret. Your whole traverse rate is around 30 degrees per second. Overall, at 9.0, the AMX-30's Super's mobility is second most mobile premium tank in the game, after the XM1. You can use its manoeuvrability to get to strong points at the start of a game, and use its speed to react to the ever-changing battlefield, as well as using its great acceleration to run rings around other tanks. Like the Leopard 1, the AMX-30 was designed to have as much manoeuvrability as possible, and therefore was given just enough armour to protect it from 20mm autocannons, and nothing more. As always, we will start with the lower frontal plate. It is angled at 45 degrees and is 79mm in thickness, for an overall effective thickness of 125mm. While this will protect you from most small caliber weapons, pretty much all of the tanks you will ever face will be able to penetrate you. And it's the same story for the upper frontal plate. It is the same 79mm of thickness, although it is angled more at 69 degrees, giving it an effective thickness of 190mm. Like the frontal plate, it may protect you from BMPs and SPAGs, but nothing more. The sides of the holes are a constant 30mm thick and are unsloped. This is obviously pretty poor armour, but is around average for the fast medium tanks of battle rating 9.0. The rear of the hull, just like the sides, is 30mm thick and completely unsloped. Going back to the turret, we can see that the thickest part of the gun mantle is only 80mm thick, so get used to repairing your gun breech. The upper part of the turret is 30mm thick, which could make you vulnerable to some high explosive rounds, and especially to HESH rounds. The cheeks of the turret are 41mm thick, but are pretty well sloped, giving them an effective thickness of 108mm. The sides of the turret, just like the cheeks, are the same 41mm of thickness, and the rear of the turret is 30mm thick. Overall, the armour of the AMX-30 Super certainly isn't one of its strengths, but when everyone in the game will be firing modern APF SDS rounds, there isn't really any tank at battle rating 9.0 that is safe. Instead, your manoeuvrability should be your armour, using your speed to get you into hard cover between shots and away from danger. The AMX-30 Super is armed with the 105mm CN105 F1 cannon. This is the same gun found on all of the other AMX-30 variants in the game. It has 8 degrees of gun depression and the standard 20 degrees of gun elevation. You can carry 50 rounds in total, with 22 of those rounds being classed as first stage ammunition. This cannon is housed in a turret capable of rotating at 28 degrees per second. This speed is very good compared to the other top tier premiums, giving it the second best turret traverse, after the XM1. The decent traverse rate, as well as this gun being fully stabilised, allow this tank to be pretty good in close quarters, and combined with your acceleration, great for peeking around corners and over hills. You get access to both thermal optics and night vision, something which substantially increases your lethality, as it allows you to easily acquire targets on maps with poor visibility. Like most of the NATO 105mm guns, you have a base reload rate of 8.7 seconds, which can be brought down to 6.7 seconds with an ace qualification. This reload rate is identical to most of the tanks on the battlefield, and around the average for battle rating 9.0. As the AMX-30 uses a domestically built French gun, it gets some unique ammo choices. The stock round is the OCC 105 F1. This is a high explosive anti-tank round. Notice how there is no fin stabilised on the end of the shell designation. This essentially means the round acts more like a late war World War II era shell, rather than a modern Sabo round. Nevertheless, it has a pretty good muzzle velocity with 1000 meters per second, and it also has very good penetration with 400mm at all ranges. But where this shell suffers is its explosive payload, carrying just 1.02 kilograms of TNT equivalent. This round has very little explosive power behind it, which translates into poor post-penetration damage. It's also worth noting that as this is the stock round, this round is completely free to fire. The AMX can also carry the OE-105F1. This is a high explosive round, carrying 2 kilograms of TNT equivalent. It is pretty ineffective, and I prefer to carry the stock heat rounds as opposed to this one. I feel like the heat round is just more useful against lightly armoured targets, especially due to this high explosive round only having a muzzle velocity of 700 meters per second, compared to the heat round's muzzle velocity of 1000 meters per second, which makes it substantially easier to aim. For creating smoke screens, you can carry the OFPH-105F1. This is a smoke shell with a holding time of 25 seconds, which can be pretty good for denying enemies a sight line. But the real meat and potatoes of this tank is the OFL-105F1. This is the armor-piercing, fin-stabilised, disregarding sabot round. It weighs 3.8 kilograms and travels at a speed of 1,525 meters per second, giving it the ability to penetrate 361mm of steel at 10 meters, and even at ranges of 2,000 meters, you can still penetrate 322mm. This is an incredibly strong round, and one of the best around available to any of the top tier premium tanks. To complement this great APF SDS round, you have some pretty good optics, with 8x zoom and 12x zoom available. Not only do you have good variable zoom optics, but the field of view in the sights is also very good. You also have a laser rangefinder, which gives you an exact range to the target within seconds. The thermal optics, gun, rangefinder, and long range zoom really does allow you to locate, track, and kill enemies at much greater ranges compared to most other tanks. As well as your main gun, you get a 7.62 MG3 machine gun for the commander. This isn't really useful for anything other than spotting enemies through smoke, but a welcome addition nonetheless. You also have a coaxially mounted 50 cal machine gun, which can be useful against lightly armoured Italian fuckers, but like the commander's machine gun, it is pretty ineffective against most threats. Overall, I think the AMX-30 SUPER has the best overall weapon system of any premium tank. Not only does it have a great gun and reload, but it also has thermal imaging, a wide field of view, great zoom, and a laser rangefinder. All of these qualities combine into what I would call a sniper's paradise. And when it comes to a shit hits the fan scenario, your great turret traverse and stabilisation allows you to handle enemies at close range as well. Seeing as this tank has very poor armour, you should try and avoid direct engagement with another enemy. Luckily for us, we have an amazing gun and extremely good manoeuvrability. When you load into a game, I'd recommend loading around 20 APF SDS rounds. You could bring a few heat rounds if you want, but I tend not to. You have a first stage ready rack of 22 rounds, which is stored in the back of the turret, making it somewhat safe. Taking any more than 22 rounds means that some ammo will be stored in the hull of the tank to the left of the driver. When you're in a game, I would try and flank the enemy, or get yourself into a sniping position overlooking a high traffic area. A good set of rocks or a nice hill is perfect for this tank. Once in position, it doesn't really matter how far away the enemies are. Your great gun handling allows you to make easy kills at all ranges. If you are forced to play in close quarters, like the map Advance to the Rhine, then using your high speed and acceleration to get onto an enemy's flank is the best way to play this tank. Whilst you can use your stabilised gun to act as a brawler by peeking round corners, if you take a hit you are pretty much dead, and I don't think it's worth the risk. Probably the biggest issue this tank faces is that the France's lineup at 9.0 is pretty bad, both in terms of performance and variety. The AMX-30 SUPER is the only 9.0 tank France has access to, and the first tank you get in the French tech tree with a gun stabiliser. This makes most of France's top tier vehicles uncompetitive, due to the high speed and shooting on the move meta at top tier. In your lineup, you get access to several other AMX-30 variants, however these tanks are battle rating 8.7, and, as I mentioned, none of these get access to a gun stabiliser, and are significantly less manoeuvrable than the AMX-30 SUPER. This means that the best French tank, apart from the Leclerc, is a premium, which says a lot more about Gaijin than it says about the French tech tree. Apart from the AMX-30 variants, you also get the AMX-13 Hot and AMX-10 RC as your light tanks, the AMX-50 Subias as your heavy, and finally the AMX-DCA as your anti-aircraft gun. In terms of close air support, the French also suffer here as well. While there is a case for using the MD-4522C and its 38 SNEB rockets, I still use the F4U-7 Corsair with its 114 SNEBs, or alternatively, one of the Vartor bombers. Overall, the AMX-30 SUPER is best played at long range, utilising your great cannon, optics and manoeuvrability. To conclude, the AMX-30 SUPER is my favourite top tier premium tank. It is incredibly good fun to play, and its great gun, fast turret traverse and high speed allows you to play this tank pretty well. no matter the map or scenario. However, the thing that really lets this tank down is the lack of an effective lineup. The French 9.0 lineup, which consists mainly of 8.7 tanks, isn't very diverse, and most of the main tanks are less capable than this premium, which for me means that there is very little reason to grind out the French tech tree. All of the other tanks I will be unlocking won't be as fun to play as this tank. Therefore, I can't really recommend this tank. I can't justify paying €60 in order to grind out a full tech tree, only to realise that the French top tier is pretty bland and boring, which is a shame to me as I genuinely love this tank. The AMX-30 SUPER is an amazing tank, and if you have a lot of spare money and want some fun, then in my opinion this is the best premium tank in the game, and definitely worth the money. But for regular people like me, who work hard for their money, this tank isn't really worth the payoff. Yes, the tank is amazing to play, but the other French top tier vehicles just aren't fun or satisfying. I would recommend either the XM1 or Leopard A1A1L44 instead of this tank, as both the American and German tech trees are flushed out, diverse, and also fun to play. As always, I hope you found this video useful, lads, and thank you very much for watching.